All right. Last week we were finishing up with chapter 5. And as I mentioned, Cyrus the Great, although chapter 5 does not mention Cyrus the Great, I'd like you to look to the handout I had given to you, the old world empires. And we'll look at Cyrus the Great for just a moment. Around 559, Cyrus the Great comes to power, and he conquers Media by conquering King Astyages, and he has the help of the priests. Now you'll notice there is a recurring theme about King Cyrus. He is very much in tune with those individuals that are religious in every country that he goes to. He pays attention to them. He treats them kindly. He's just very much in tune with their religious wishes, and he wins them over. And this is key to his reign. There's a lot of turmoil in Babylon. As we had mentioned, Nabonidus stirs up the religious people in the city, and they're not very happy with him. And so he ends up leaving the city, leaving his son Belshazzar in charge of the city itself, and he goes off doing other things. And things do not get much better. So there's a large uproar, and this is going to play, potentially might be a part of what is going on that we see in chapter 6, and this is the reason why I bring it up. So we see Cyrus taking advantage of this turmoil. So he turns to the priests. He realizes that these individuals are leaders of the people. They have the hearts of the people. And so he looks to the priests and the religious leaders of that day, and he gains their strength. He yokes their strength. He milks their strength, if you would. And he uses those individuals to gain power in every area that he goes into. Okay, so when he comes to the city of Babylon, they already know, the priests of the city already know that he's going to allow them to worship the way they want to. He's already has this reputation that precedes him, see. And so they kind of like that idea to begin with. And so as he gets ready to besiege the city, and as Belshazzar is throwing his great big party, there are, when you read the historical data on it, there's conflicting reports about what happens. Some reports say that Belshazzar's troops goes out of the city and engages Cyrus outside of the city, but then they pull in and they just lock themselves inside the city because they see that his oncoming troops are so large that they're not going to be able to gain against him. And so the city is well fortified. They're not their best chances of surviving an attack is to be inside the city. And we've already looked at the city, and we realize, the double walls, the river running through the middle of it. A siege is going to be difficult against this well fortified city that Nebuchadnezzar has built. So this is definitely going to be their best, the best way for them to survive this type of attack. But they haven't considered several things. When you've got something rotten on the inside, well, guess what happens? things don't go just exactly the way you want. And Cyrus and his engineers are brilliant. They're not just a little smart, they're very brilliant. So they take the Euphrates River and they build a dam north of Babylon, and they divert the large portion of the river, at least enough of it so his troops can wade through the river and come through underneath the walls. Because it's only a single wall that it goes underneath. The river goes underneath to come through the center of the city of Babylon. Now they still have walls and everything to breach when they get underneath that wall, because there's inner walls and doors there. But with the help of the priests, and evidently there's conflicting reports how much damage was done to the city to open it, or how much help the priests were in opening the city gates at the different portals, so Cyrus's armies could come in. But they took it seems that they took the city without much of a fight.
And it helps that on the night that you attack, the king's having a drunken party, and the whole city's drunk. I mean, it made it easy. It made them easy, you know. To once they got inside the city, they couldn't defend themselves.
Yeah, I think it's very telling that almost all of the historians record that there was a feast going on when Cyrus, when Cyrus comes inside the city. So whatever took place, how much destruction went on, or how much fighting there was in order to take the city, it does seem that the city wasn't there wasn't a long siege, and there wasn't much destruction to the city. Also, it would seem that Cyrus himself never entered the city. He was so busy in going on to conquering, he took his troops and went on to conquer more land. He left his son and an individual, I can't remember his name, to govern and keep things under control. And that's what we see happening according to historical record. So that's what we know of at that point in time. Now, if you read the other items that we have here recorded about Cyrus the Great, we'll notice at the time that is considered the first year of Cyrus, that Cyrus orders the return of the Jews in Ezra 1 through 4, and when that is prophesied by Isaiah, that God says that Cyrus my servant. So that's very interesting that Isaiah, several hundred years before, not several hundred years before, but a good period of time, 100 years before Cyrus the Great or so, prophesies of him by name, just as was prophesied of the name of the man, King Josiah, was prophesied by name. So these types of things are very interesting. There is no mistaking a true prophet of God when he prophesies of future events. Now, prophecy doesn't always have to do with future events, but in these two cases, that's what we're talking about, is them prophesying of future events. But indeed, eventually Cyrus the Great dies in battle because he was a great conqueror, and that's part of the reason why he is called Cyrus the Great. Okay, so we will leave that at this point in time, but now as we go back and we start to talk about chapter 6, some of those things will be interesting as we go through chapter 6. Now, before we leave chapter 5, if you look at the latter part of chapter 5, verses 30 and 31, it says, "In that night Belshazzar the Chaldean king was slain, and Darius the Mede received the kingdom, being about 62 years old." So, this completely lines up with what we know of in history. Belshazzar was killed. He doesn't say that Belshazzar was the only one killed, but that he was killed that very night. Okay? After Daniel had interpreted the dream, sure enough, he was killed that night. And it was given to the Medes and the Persians, just as Daniel had prophesied. Okay, it's interesting that God talks about this kingdom that was going to take over was the Medes and the Persians. Cyrus the Great and his son Cambyses are of Median descent, but they command a Persian army. So it was proper for them to be called both Medes and Persians, because they had both Medes and Persians in their army. Media had risen up, had been quite large. Nebuchadnezzar was quite smart in that he had married and through diplomacy kept the Medes as his ally through all those years, as did his father through marriage. And so they were an ally. And it would seem that Nebuchadnezzar was very attached to his wife. And if you know anything about families, if you take care of your wife, how does that settle with the other family? How does that go with the other family? Do they think highly of you, or do they think badly of you? Yeah. Yeah, if you take care of my sister, we have your back. Right? That's the way those things go. That's the reason why marriages made alliances. So you take care of that person. And, well, it seemed to be more than just an alliance with Nebuchadnezzar. It seemed that he truly loved his wife and that he took care of her. And so we have the hanging gardens of Babylon that was so important that he really truly wanted to take care of her and loved her and wanted her to remember the beautiful hill country that she came from.
We see that philosophy all throughout Europe and the old countries where the crown kings and queens of one country married into another, crossed over and surprised sometimes, where the king of one country is related somehow to the king of another, and then, like you said, they built alliances and joined forces in various cases.
Yeah, sometimes those alliances work well, and sometimes those alliances didn't work so well. But nonetheless, yeah, that's the purpose of them.
Depending on whether the families could come together. And of course it worked when it did. It worked well for the crown kings and so forth, the nobles, the same way we see the political classes in this country that gather together for their benefit, to the detriment many times of the common
just all depends on who's in power. Okay, in verse 31, the American Standard Version says, and Darius the Mede received the kingdom. King James Version says he took the kingdom. But if you do a little bit of research on that word took, you'll find out that word took means that it was given to him. So that falls in line with what we already know, right? Darius the Mede it makes sense if Cyrus the Great was of Median descent or had Median blood. Who would he turn to rule or to govern while he goes off and does work in another place, does conquering in another place? Who's he going to turn to? Someone of Median blood, don't you think? Most likely this is an individual that has some connection, some type of family connection, you would think. I may be wrong, but you would think there. We don't know. History has not revealed who this individual is yet. And it may never. Who knows if it will or if not. We really don't know. In fact, there's a lot of speculation about who this person is, and I'm not going to speculate who it is. He is 62 years old, so I know it's not Cambyses, because Cambyses is too young, nor is it the general that Cyrus left in charge, because again, he's too old to be that general. So I don't know who this individual is. But it makes sense that he would turn to a Mede and leave him in charge. Also, we are told he being about 62 years old tells us what? Is there anybody here today that in this day and age that they might be a little unsure how old they are? They have to make up a birth certificate for somebody back in the 50s or the 40s or the 30s and have to guess at a birth date?
Rare.
But it does happen because they don't know. They know that it was about this date, but they're not sure of the exact date. Now that's very rare to happen today, because the hospitals and places, we know almost exactly the exact day and year that person is born. But back in the 30s and the 20s and sometimes in the 40s, even into the 50s, the mistakes happened, didn't they? Birth certificates were lost and some things happen every once in a while. Oh, do you think that could have happened here? He was about 62 years old. Maybe they didn't really know exactly how old he was. Something else that we could talk about here too is the fact that perhaps he wasn't on the throne for very long, being of the age that he was.
Fairly good age in this time, 62. There weren't many that were.
Probably was not very many individuals that old. Daniel himself was probably the exception to the rule. And how old was Daniel at this point in time? How old would we guess him to be? If it was the first year of Cyrus the Great, how old would that make Daniel? Well, you know he'd lived through the 70 years captivity, so you'd add 70 years to however old he was when he was taken captive. So I know he's in his mid to late 80s. If he was 15 years old when he was taken captive, that would make him 85, wouldn't it? In the first year of Cyrus. He couldn't be any younger. So whatever age he was when he was taken captive, and we know he was a youth, somewhere between 13 and 17 years old, most likely, you add 70 years to it. And that's how old Daniel is at this point in time. So he's not a spring chicken. Okay? All right. I interrupted you, Brother David. Did you have something you wanted to say before we go into chapter 6?
Well, I was thinking about the records. He's talking about hospitals and stuff. We have today, we keep records. Back in the 20s and 30s, like he's talking about, a lot of people were born at home, and they may have had things going on. Who had time to write down all the maybe points at this stage at this time? Before you know it, that you've forgotten whatever. And back then, during this time frame, I'm sure record keeping may have not been the first thing on my mind.
Right. I don't really know.
Just something I was thinking about regarding the timing of things that happened. Of course, we know Daniel had just told Belshazzar what was about to happen to him. They put, verse 29 says, they clothed Daniel with purple and put a chain of gold about his neck. So he's now wearing kind of royal garb. How much time happened between there and the time the army comes in and killed, and Darius or and Belshazzar is killed? It doesn't tell us exactly, but if Daniel is nearby at that time, he is in royal garb. It seems that he would have been potentially a target for, hey, there's another royal, should we take him out too? So it makes me kind of wonder, had he managed to kind of get away? Had he taken that off? Perhaps the fact that he was in his mid to late 80s, they didn't see him as a threat. It's interesting to me that his life could have potentially been in danger if he were still nearby when Belshazzar's life was taken, because of the raiment that had just been given. Something interesting to think about.
That's no telling. No telling at that point.
I haven't done any research on the idea of being about in that verse 31, but just kind of reading it from the since the Holy Spirit would have known exactly how old he was, I tend to think that maybe the about means that he was somewhere, he might have been 61, but close to 62, something like today we might say he'll turn 62 in a month or two or something like that. I don't know. But since obviously the author is the Holy Spirit wouldn't have needed any records as far as them being kept. But like I said, I haven't studied what being about. I don't know if there's something there that might tell us more about that from the original language, or if it may be just, like I said, I kind of tend, just reading it, to think maybe the idea is more of he was closer to 62 than 61, or closer to 62 than 63, one of those, something like that, maybe.
Okay?
And really, it doesn't, ultimately, it doesn't change anything, whether you're 61, 62, 63, or.
Yeah, it really doesn't matter. But, yeah. Okay, chapter 6. It pleased Darius, we'll read the chapter as it is our custom, and that'll probably be the end of the class. It pleased Darius to set over the kingdom 120 satraps, who should be throughout the whole kingdom, and over them 3 presidents, of whom Daniel was one, and these satraps might give account unto them, and that the king should have no damage. Then this Daniel was distinguished above the presidents and the satraps, because an excellent spirit was in him, and the king thought to set him over the whole realm. Then the presidents and the satraps sought to find occasion against Daniel as touching the kingdom, but they could find no occasion nor fault, forasmuch he was faithful, neither was there any error or fault found in him. Then said these men, we shall not find any occasion against this Daniel, except we find it against him concerning the law of his God. Then these presidents and satraps assembled together to the king, and said unto the king, King Darius, live forever. All the presidents of the kingdom, the deputies and the satraps, the counselors and the governors, have consulted together to establish a royal statute and to make a strong interdict. And whosoever shall ask a petition of any god or man for 30 days, save of thee, O king, he shall be cast into a den of lions. Now, O king, establish the interdict, and sign the writing that cannot be changed, according to the law of the Medes and the Persians, which altereth not. Wherefore King Darius signed the writing and the interdict. And when Daniel knew the writing was signed, he went into his house. Now his windows were open in his chamber toward Jerusalem. And he knelt upon his knees 3 times a day, and prayed, and gave thanks before his God, as he did aforetime. Then these men assembled together, and found Daniel making petition and supplication before his God. And they came near, and spake before the king concerning the king's interdict. Hast thou not signed an interdict, that every man that shall make a petition unto any god, man, within 30 days, save thee, O king, shall be cast into a den of lions? And the king answered and said, the thing is true, according to the law of the Medes and the Persians, which altereth not. Then answered they and said unto the king, that Daniel, who is of the children of the captivity of Judah, regardeth not thee, O king, nor the interdict thou hast signed, but maketh his petition 3 times a day. Then the king, when he had heard these words, was sore displeased, and set his heart on Daniel to deliver him. And he labored till the going down of the sun to rescue him. Then these men assembled together unto the king, and said unto the king, Know, O king, that the law of the Medes and the Persians, that no interdict nor statute which the king established may be changed. Then the king commanded that they brought Daniel, and cast him to the den of lions. Now the king spake and said unto Daniel, Thy God whom thou servest continually, he will deliver thee. And a stone was brought and laid upon the mouth of the den, and the king sealed it with his own signet, and with the signet of his lords, that nothing may be changed concerning Daniel. Then the king went to his palace, and passed the night fasting. Neither were instruments of music brought before him, and his sleep fled from him. Then the king arose very early in the morning, and went in haste into the den of lions. And when he came near unto the den to Daniel, he cried with a lamentable voice. And the king spake unto Daniel, O Daniel, servant of the living God is thy God, whom thou servest continually, able to save thee from the lions. Then said Daniel unto the king, O king, live forever. My God has sent his angel, and has shut the lions' mouths, and they have not hurt me, forasmuch before him innocency was found in me, and also before thee, O king, have I not done no hurt. Then was the king exceedingly glad, and commanded that they should take lion up out of the den. So Daniel was taken up out of the den, and no manner of hurt was found upon him, because he trusted in his God. And the king commanded, and they brought those men who had accused Daniel, and they cast them into the den of lions, them, their children, and their wives. And the lions had the mastery of them, and brake their bones in pieces before they came to the bottom of the den. And the king wrote unto all the peoples, nations, languages that dwell in all the earth, Peace be multiplied unto you. I make a decree that in all dominion of my kingdom men fear and tremble before the God of Daniel, for he is the living God, and steadfast forever, and his kingdom is that which shall not be destroyed, and his dominion